This is an overview of the collective bargaining process, along with some history and insights into the process. It all started as a hockey league in the East Block of the Confederation building. Over the last few decades, NAPE has expanded, and now Government General Services, still Local 7104, is only a tiny part of a rapidly expanding union representing dozens of public companies. NAPE Local 7104 still exists, but it's a remnant of what it was. Once every cycle of collective agreements, usually every 4 years, but could be shorter, members are encouraged to fill in a resolution form. These get posted on corkboards and are distributed via email. Anyone can fill them in. Local 7104 has a board, so these get organized, duplicates removed, and sometimes they're edited for clarity. These, along with resolutions from smaller locals that don't have boards, get sent to the NAPE headquarters. This is a typical convention format. There are keynote speakers, and an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon to read resolutions and talk about them. It's not a debate because there's no back and forth argument. You either speak at the microphone in favor of the resolution or against it, followed by a vote. NAPE headquarters weighs in on each resolution and recommends concurrence or non-concurrence. If the delegates approve a resolution, it goes to the negotiating committee. If it's rejected, it goes into the garbage can. However, many resolutions were not up for discussion and just referred directly to various committees. Additionally, since the resolutions are not actually a priority at the component convention, but interleaved with all sorts of speaking events, there's never enough time to get through them all. A resolution is then just passed to refer everything else back to the committee. Indexing of pension isn't part of the collective agreement, so it was referred back to the pensions committee. However, it is a bone of contention because there's no clear mechanism to get the indexing restored, and both parties to the collective agreement, government and unions, are responsible for the pension fund. Everything that was related to money was referred to the negotiating committee without a vote. Up to this point, everything is in the planning stage, and negotiations have not even begun. Within a period of not more than 60 and not less than 30 days immediately before the expiration of the terms of a collective agreement, either party may give written notice to start collective bargaining. The Public Service Collective Bargaining Act provides the legal framework. The non-transparent bargaining process and the fate of the resolutions is now in a black hole. There's no visibility, and there's no idea what is actually being fought for. NAPE also insists that the resolutions are a secret, despite the fact that they were recently broadcast via email to both members and management. The backroom boys negotiate an agreement, and when the union feels they have something they can sell to members, the next step is a ratification vote. In previous bargaining cycles, NAPE instructed members not to share details of the tentative agreement on social media, nor were members given adequate time to even think about it. Everyone was told to turn up to a ratification vote, presented with a slideshow highlighting the greatest things in sliced bread, and then followed by a vote. Signing bonuses were offered to sweeten the deal. Agreeing to 4 more years of negative wage growth is serious and requires serious consideration, not high-pressure salesmanship. If you have inadequate time to review an agreement, say less than a week, then do not ratify. If it comes nowhere close to what you need, for example, a wage increase that's less than the current inflation rate, leaving you worse off every year, do not ratify it. Do not be bullied into anything, and remember that signing bonuses are not in your best interest. If there's money on the table, you want that in the base salary. You do not have to ratify a bad agreement, and there's not a rush either. You're still going to be paid as usual. Ratification is not a strike vote. You can do both. You can say no to a bad deal and no to a strike if you aren't happy with union strategy. Before a strike can commence, essential employees must be identified. Where the majority of employees in the union are considered or deemed to be essential employees, then everybody is considered an essential employee. The union cannot take a strike vote until the employer and the union have agreed to the number of employees in each job classification who will be deemed essential. If unable to reach a collective agreement, either side may request to the minister to appoint a conciliation officer to confer with the parties and assist them in concluding a collective agreement. The conciliation officer, after 14 days, then writes a report saying what do they agree to and what cannot be agreed upon. Note that in this process, being asked to ratify a tentative agreement negotiated between the union and the employer, and which NAPE recommends we approve, is not a strike vote. It's just a chance to tell NAPE to get back to the negotiating table. The screen shows a basic flow of the process. First, notice is given and the union and the government attempt to work out an agreement. If they're successful, members are asked to ratify the agreement and the process is complete. On the other hand, if members reject the tentative agreement, it goes back to negotiations. At some point, if the sides are too far apart, conciliation officers appointed, essential service agreements are reached, and a notice of strike can be given. Members have to approve the strike in a secret ballot, and only then can a strike begin. A strike can lead back to negotiations, or government can legislate everybody back to work and dictate the terms of the agreement. The entire sequence of events is laid out in labor regulations. It's a rigged game in favor of the employer, which in this case can make any law on the fly, as Danny Williams did by adding language to remove any essential worker who fails to show up on the next shift from the payroll. You won't get anywhere with authority by following the rules. However, defiance shouldn't be an individual sport. The personal risk is too high, and the chance of success is low. Newfoundlanders, pissed off with government corruption, gathered in front of the Colonial Building, forcing Sir Richard Squires to escape down the back steps and out the door. Air Canada defied back-to-work legislation and shut down air travel. However, this was carefully planned. There was a campaign to make sure that the Canadian public knew that they were not getting paid until the door closed. The membership was consulted and engaged. The collective agreement had a proper funeral. There was good legal support, and the team effort succeeded. NAPE has nowhere near this level of preparedness, public support, or even member support. Consider that Air Canada had 94% participation in the strike vote, with 96% voting in favor of labour action. Turnout at previous NAPE ratifications is dismal by comparison. It's more than just the collective agreement. Prompt handling of resolution and grievances, sufficient officers in both Labrador and Newfoundland so that when management attacks a member, a union employee with suitable skills such as labor relations or a lawyer can be there to represent, working with the membership to prioritize issues and identify the hills to die on, and education like this unofficial video series. In a previous conference, everybody agreed that Labrador members should have boots on the ground. NAPE berated the delegate on the floor until they dropped the resolution. These have been issues for decades with very little progress, especially since the union has more than enough cash to hire the necessary people to do what is needed using our union dues. So what is next? The collective agreement comes nowhere close to recovering our losses, say 38%. There's no cost of living adjustment, there's no pension indexing, and let's say the membership votes no. Then a strike is considered, but there's insufficient planning or capacity to do it right, like Air Canada did, and the membership votes no. So things continue as they are, but what now? Divorce? It isn't as uncommon as you might think. This is an image from a law firm in Ottawa. The process is laid out in Newfoundland labour law. This can be done at the end of a collective agreement, and it would need at least 40% of everybody to agree. Meanwhile, NAPE will lobby hard to try to convince us that they should continue to be the collector of our union dues. The next few slides outline the legal process. You need a spokesman and you need to collect employee support. It has to be done carefully and with legal advice. Amazingly, NAPE's constitution specifies discipline fines of $1,000 a day against any NAPE member who attempts to bring about a change in unions. Please give this some thought, like, and share. These issues impact not only your family's future, but the ability of the public sector to efficiently provide the services required by the general public. Consider printing out QR codes to this YouTube playlist to pass out or stick on corkboards, as well as adding comments, liking, and sharing. Thank you. Bye.